Hello, today we're going to talk about the perfect forms, right? The present, not all the perfect forms actually, the present perfect, Unit 4 from Advanced Language Practice. And I think this is one of the most interesting entries, right? Learning about the present perfect, which is a tense we disregard in Spanish, is very important to understand English better, right? So I started out here with the verb have, and I wanted to make a comment in passing. Right here we have the entry, the usage note as to have you got or do you have, right? Remember that have you got or have got is the usual British form to show possession, right? They've got a wonderful house. I haven't got a television. Have you got a meeting today, right? You can also use have, but it is more formal. I have no objection to your request. Have you an appointment rather than have you got, right? Uh, and we say informally, I haven't a clue, right? And then let's move on a little bit. But American English uses have in forms with do, does, and did. So they have a wonderful house. We don't have a television. Do you have a meeting today? Rather than have you got, rather we haven't got, right? Um, okay. Now, when we think about the present perfect, we realize that Spanish doesn't use it, right? We do have some speakers in Argentina who still use the perfect forms, though not all of them, and the meanings are very similar, actually, right? If you check out La Real Academia Española, right, and you will get explanations as to how the perfect forms are used in Spanish as well. The thing is that we have stopped using them altogether, right? And in this respect, that I should say that there's also a difference between British and American, because American speakers tend to drop the use of the perfect form and sometimes replace it with the past simple, the way we do in Spanish. However, I would like to go now to the explanations on page 20, right? And go over the meanings of the perfect forms. I am going to add a couple more that do not appear here. The first meaning is recentness, right? So we use the perfect form to show that something is recent. It seems, ah, sometimes it doesn't like this term, right? Recency. Well, neither of them. Recentness should be here. Maybe I spelled it and didn't realize. No. For some reason they don't want this term, but don't worry, right? Recentness is here. It is okay, or recency. And the example is I've missed the turning. I've just seen a ghost. The typical word here will be just, right? To show recency. But what we really want to say is this just happened. It has just happened. Now we don't find two examples here because just can be used with other verb forms, right? But you've just missed her. She just left, right? Now, while it is true that the idea is that the action is very recent, we're also focusing on the result. You just missed her. She was here, right? You've just missed her. Sometimes you will see that the meanings of the perfect forms overlap, right? So the next one is that we refer to an indefinite past or unknown time. And that's why the example here is Jim has had 3 car accidents. What do we mean? Sometime in the past, we don't know exactly when, and that really doesn't matter. So it is indefinite or unknown. But at the same time, there is experience here. So sometimes I call these forms experiential. Now, it would be odd to think about it in these terms because experiential knowledge, experiential learning methods, that's a word. To think about Jim having had 3 accidents as experience. But it is, right? It's not that odd. It is a negative experience, if you wish, but it is the kind of experience. And what we mean actually is he knows about car accidents. Yes, that's why we call it experiential. The next one is result. I've twisted my ankle. And in brackets you get that's why I'm limping. And this is good because the present perfect, or sorry, the perfect forms we'll see in a minute again, are usually, not usually, but sometimes used to give some kind of explanation, right? Which means that's why. But at the same time, I think we cannot forget that this use of result is very much attached to the result. That is to say that the person cannot walk. Yes, I've twisted my ankle and now I cannot walk. Or the typical example is when you arrive home and you realize you don't have the keys and you say, I've left the keys at work. Now I can't go inside, right? So result has to do with something that affects the present, right? Now, the next point says that the meaning of the present perfect is up to the present. So rather than focus on the result now, we're picking up an event which started sometime in the past, an indefinite past as well, but it lasts up to the present. So I've lived here for 10 years, right? So all of this time. In this case, it's a long period of time. And this is also very experiential, isn't it? What I'm telling you is, I know this place very well. I know this place like the back of my hand. So it means experience. It means I know. Well, I don't have a lot of luck today, do I? Let's see if I find it like this. Now, the next meaning is habitual action, but now we will have moved on to the continuous form, right? That's it. To know something like the back of your hand, you're very familiar with it, right? This is where I grew up. I know this area like the back of my hand. Okay, so let's have a look at this habitual action, which I insist is the continuous form. I've been jogging every morning for the last month. Now, this is a habit, clearly. It seems that it is a rather limited habit, right, for a period of time. And it is emphasizing the continuity of the action. Now, before we move on, I would like to focus on a couple of, before we move on to other uses of the present perfect continuous, there's a couple of things I want to say about the present perfect. And here you have two sentences which are contrasted. I've bought a new car. I bought a new car last week. What is happening here? We are contrasting the present perfect and the past simple, and sometimes they may occur in the same circumstances. The thing is that we are using different meanings. When I say I've bought a new car, well, maybe it is recentness. The context will tell us, right? It may be that this is just a very recent. You don't want to tell me exactly, or you don't know exactly when that is. The result, now I own a car, right? So as you can see, three meanings here seem relevant. The others, experiential and up to the present, do not seem to make any sense, right? As opposed to the action I bought a car last week, which refers to the single completed action in the past, which we view as finished. And that's the main difference between the past simple and the present perfect. That is to say, I see an action in the past as over, but the one I use with the present perfect somehow connects with the present, either because it is recent, or because it is experience, or it is a result, or it has indefinite time. There's something about it that connects it with the present. For this, I usually use this two sentences simply to compare the uses, right? Somebody may ask, suppose you arrive home at 10 p.m., right? You may get either of these two questions. You may, right? Did you eat? Or have you eaten? Now, ideally, right, and this may not necessarily be so, when I ask, did you eat? I simply want to know if this happened in the past or not. That's it. Now, when I ask, have you eaten? it is a kind of invitation, because if you haven't, there's food in the oven, right? Because I'm connecting the event of your eating or not eating in the past to the present. And I want to know to somehow make up for the fact that you may not have eaten, right? So that's a kind of thought that needs to that you need to put into the present perfect forms, right? There are many, many other examples, but before we move on to a couple of examples I want to single out, I would like to refer to some phrases that call for the present perfect, and one of them is first. Sorry, I can't find the bar here. So first, second, third time you've told me, whatever. When I start a sentence with this is the first or the second or the third time, it should be a slash, right? I cannot find the bar here. Maybe this is the bar. No, that's not the bar either. You need to use the perfect form. This is the first, the second, the third time you've told me that you would be late, right? And the same goes for superlatives, and in a way, first, second, and third are superlatives, right? So we say it's the worst, worst date ever. No, it's the worst date I have ever had, or the best date I have ever had, right? Another use that is not mentioned here for the perfect forms is that we use the perfect forms to introduce a new topic, right? Have you heard about whatever, right? Have you heard about that? Have you seen this film? Well, if you haven't, why don't we go, right, and see it together? We also use it for a very unusual event, and that's why we use the perfect forms with ever or never, right? So I've never met anyone who likes, I don't know, black films, or it should be something unusual, right? I've never seen anybody who is so absent-minded, right? Okay, another thing we need to consider when we think about the perfect forms is something you will find at the back of the page. Before we go to the continuous forms, I would like you to draw your attention to the end of the explanations, where you find the typical words that occur with the simple past, right? These are yesterday, last week, on Sunday, in 1999, last year, last month, last whatever, right? What are the forms we use with present perfect? Well, we have a few here, actually, since and already, but there's also always, ever, never, right? Before. I have never seen anything like that before, right? Then there's also forms like today. I haven't seen him today. I haven't seen him so far. Wait, so far. I haven't seen him up to now, right? Or recently, right? And there's also, I haven't seen him today. I haven't seen him this morning, right? And even in the past few months, right? We also use the perfect forms with how long have you had, how long have you been, right? And now, before we go to the perfect forms, some idioms, perfect continuous forms, some idiomatic expressions with the perfect forms, right? I've had enough, right? This means I can't put up with this anymore, right? Another one, you've had it, right? You've had it means you're in trouble. That's torn it, right? To torn it, right? Once again, you have done something that will make other people complain or be angry at you. This one's beautiful. I would say she thinks she has arrived. Se la cree, right? Oops, I clicked enter. She thinks she has arrived, right? Se la cree. He's lost it. He's very angry. He's lost his patience, right? His self-control, and he's going to be mad. One thing I keep saying, you've got me there. When you ask a question for which I don't know the answer, you've got me there, right? And the last one I like very much, have you taken leave, you know this, of your senses, right? To take leave, you take leave when you have a job, right? You take maybe sick leave, right? Licencia, right? Entonces, tomarse licencia del razonamiento, cosa que no tiene sentido, right? But this means, have you gone, have you gone mad? Have you heard the one about, right? That's a joke. All right, I think we have covered present perfect. One last thing I want to say is that these are the correct uses of present perfect, but there are many cases in which speakers sort of kind of make mistakes, right? And you may hear something ever since I've been here, and that's initially grammatically wrong because since calls for a specific time in the past. What you may say is, I've been sad ever since I got here, right? Ever since I got here. Now, what has happened? A speaker will go with since I've been here because the speaker wants to emphasize the period of time. And that's not wrong, right? But initially, when we use since with present perfect, it's because actually it fits the main verb of the sentence. Since refers to a specific point in the past, so it should occur with the past simple, right? And there are other cases. I don't know if you are familiar with the three blind mice, right? Three blind mice, three blind mice. Did you ever see such a thing in your life, right? And it should have been, have you ever seen such a thing in your life, right? So, well, that's simply to show you that we'll see many examples and we will discuss them and we'll see what happens with the perfect forms, right? Please note that I refer to the forms have got. Have got is not a perfect form, right? I just wanted to single it out to show you the difference between American and English and the use of have. Now, let's focus briefly on the perfect continuous forms, right? So I go to the bottom of page 20 now. The perfect continuous form suggests, again, as it says here, a state that lasts up to the present. So I've been waiting for you, right? So what I'm doing with the present perfect continuous is to emphasize the continuity, the duration. But I can also explain that this activity is incomplete. I've been cleaning, and I could say just I've been cleaning without the house, but I still haven't finished, and actually mean that this is not finished, right? And of course, with I've been writing letters all morning, I am simply emphasizing the duration. We also tend to say something like, I've been running, that's why I look hot. And as I said earlier, we tend to use the perfect forms to give an explanation, right? That's why I look hot, right? Now, we also use the present perfect continuous, for a repeated activity. I've been taking lessons. Clearly, this picks up the continuity of um, the the limited period of time, the temporariness of the continuous form. Sorry. Here you have two more examples. How long have you lived here, and how long have you been living here? And this shows to you clearly that the continuous form emphasizes the duration. One final point that these notes make is that we can use the present perfect to show achievement. I've ironed 5 shirts this morning, right? Whereas the present perfect continuous will focus on the duration. I've been ironing my shirts this morning. Now, this use of achievement is one that teachers tend to teach students, right, when they want to say terminé, right, and the translation into English that should be I have finished, right? Okay, a couple of comments regarding the use of the present perfect. As I said, remember that we can use the present perfect form to explain a current result. So this test is much better. It is clear you have been working, right? And this is the use we saw in you've been running. I've been running. That's why I look hot, right? We also use the perfect forms with adverbial clauses of time, with when, as soon as, before, after, until, once, by the time, the moment. So as soon as you have finished, call me. Call me before you have finished, right? Or after you have done your homework, right? These conjunctions tend to call for the perfect forms, right? Now, notice that there might be a difference between the present simple and the present perfect in these cases. I will leave as soon as the guests leave, or have left. I shall call. Let's make it better. As soon as they leave, so right after they leave, right? But when I say have left, I want the whole thing to have finished, and there seems to be very little difference between them, clearly, right? But have left, as we said at the very beginning of this introduction to the present perfect, shows that completion of the action, right? So it will be over by then, right? Now, I think. Well, yes, there's one final comment about the perfect form is that no, this is an example that shows result. You'll feel better when you've had a rest, right? When it shows the result and also the finishedness, right? So as you can see, the perfect forms have several meanings, right? And what you should bear in mind is that they will be activated by the context. So the context will tell you which meaning is relevant in each case. Is it recentness? Is it indefinite time? Is it result? Is it experiential? Is it a habit? Is it incompletion? Is it duration? Is it recently finished? Is it achievement? So we have many meanings, and of course not just one of them may be active, right? Some of them will be occurring at the same time. So that's about it. I hope you have enjoyed the present perfect, and I hope you have learned new meanings of the present perfect, right? Thank you very much.